Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Surviving and Powering Through the Pandemic. Okay, this is specially brought to you by Affin Bank. And let me just get my slides so I can share. One moment. Okay, so everyone can see the screen, right? Excellent. So thanks to Affin Bank for bringing us this series. And I'm very proud and happy to be associated with this. Surviving and Thriving Through the Pandemic mini series. My name is Peter Lam, and I'm a business coach, award-winning business coach actually, and author of this book, this highly acclaimed book that won an award as well, Profit Max Your Business. So this is the second episode, second video. The first video, if you missed it, you can contact Affin and watch it. Was on building a strong mindset. And this is the second one where we're going to talk about crisis response and team communications. The next one, the third in the series, will be on cash flow mastery, because in this crisis, we really need to get hold of our cash flow when our businesses were closed and we were suffering and affected. And especially now, very soon, the loan moratorium will be lifted, and you need it. You probably should be applying for extension or even applying for additional help, more financing or restructuring your loans or whatever. And finally, the fourth session, we will be covering marketing for business recovery. So having taken a hit in our business, how do we come bouncing back? How do we bring our business back to recovery, in these uncertain times? Okay, so very quickly about me, I'm a business coach, been a business coach since 2003, and basically, oops, basically prior to that, I was with various multinational companies like Unilever, Kraft, F&N, and so on. So in my first chapter of my book, and in the first video of this series, I talked about the three pillars of business success. And one of the big ones is actually mindset. If you haven't got the mindset pillar right, then the whatever methodology or tools that we give you is not going to be very useful, because if you don't have the right mindset, nothing works. And then we went on to talk about the uncertain times and the consequences of uncertainty, where many people make bad decisions or feel overwhelmed or they miss out on opportunities because they cannot make decisions. They are so panicky and so much in shock. So a strong mindset is essential. And we talked about being the first thing being to accept that this is the new normal, that things are not going to go back to the way they were before. And that's the reality. So we need to be more resilient, more agile and flexible, and at the same time stay very calm, what I call urgency without panic, moving into action but without panicking, without just going round and round in circles. So if you haven't watched the first video, go and get it, and there I talk about the 7 ways to manage uncertainty, so something that you don't want to miss. All right. Today, we're going to talk about crisis communication essentials. What to say, when to say, who to say it to, and how to say it. Okay. So before we go into crisis communications, let's look at the big picture of crisis management. No? So crisis management has a few stages. So this is a 5-stage model. So in the middle is damage containment. That's when the crisis hits. But before the crisis hits, there are two stages, if you like. First, you have the early warning signs. So we look at the COVID crisis, the coronavirus. There were early warning signs because around January, end of January, Chinese New Year, we heard about the closing down, the lockdown of Wuhan. We heard about hundreds and thousands of people dying in so many cases. So that was early warning signs. And some companies, I think less than 5% of companies, actually took those warning signs to heart and started preparing and planning for what happens if the virus comes to Malaysia, because we have experienced SARS, we have experienced the Ebola, the Zika, and so on. So many viruses can spread, but SARS was a big one for us. So there were some companies that were already alert and already starting to plan and prepare. The next stage is actually verifying and taking and planning preventive action. So people who were early were thinking about what happens if we cannot operate our business, if we go into lockdown or partial lockdown, what if we have to work from home, what do we need, what facilities, what equipment, and so on and so forth. Then comes the damage containment, where we try to minimize the damage. So some of us who are able to go onto the digital platforms and sell online, especially if you're in retail. If you haven't, then you want to be online. If you're B2B or if you're in manufacturing, a bit difficult to be online. And then preparing for recovery. And a lot of people miss the last stage, which is learning. What can we learn from this? No, because you never know. No, there could be a second wave, or third wave, or fifth wave, or seventh wave, or there could be a totally new virus pandemic in 6 months' time or 6 years' time. So, what can we learn from this crisis that we can apply next time round? So, these are the 5 stages. Now, creating a crisis response team is essential. Now, some of you I know, maybe small startups. Maybe the crisis team is you and your daughter, or you and your wife, or you and your brother, or you and your two partners. That's the crisis team because you're a startup. But for the bigger businesses, the medium-sized businesses who are a bit more established, you want to make you want to appoint a couple of people to be in the crisis response team so that you can move faster and make decisions faster and implement them faster. So who are the people who typically make up the crisis response team? Well, obviously there has to be a leader, and in this case, it has to be yourself because it's a big crisis. If you're in manufacturing, probably the facility manager or the health and safety person or something has been someone from legal, risk management, IT, definitely human resource, definitely from the finance side. So these are some people who need to be on a team. So what are the roles? So recently, if you guys follow business news, Top Glove, yeah, the largest glove manufacturer, they had a little crisis because I think about a month or two ago, they were sort of blacklisted in the US, and their products could not enter the US. And I think the US is about 30% or more of their business. So can you imagine how significant that is? Of course, it's not the whole of Top Glove, it's just one of the subsidiary companies. And they said they had not complied to labor regulations. They were, what do you call, taking advantage of their foreign workers and so on and so forth. So, of course, only the CEO and the managing director, the chairman and managing director were allowed to be the spokespeople for the company on such a big issue. So this is where the crisis management team is very important. And before the announcements were made, before they talked about what actions they're going to take, obviously the team got together to plan what to communicate. So you have to drive it, no? So this is a cute little photo, isn't it? I found this photo and I thought I need to share it. Little kid driving a car. Now, developing the crisis management plan, okay? So that's not the topic of today, but what I'm saying is we need to develop a crisis management plan. Just like the Top Glove situation, they had to come up with a crisis management plan before they came up with their communication plan. What needs to be done? So identified that they need to go and submit certain documents to the labor office in the US, get clearance, and so on and so forth. Now, the crisis communication plan, that's the next step. So then we come down to, first of all, if we move from left to right, the first box talks about deciding on our main or overarching objectives. What are our main or overarching objectives? So for example, if your main objective is to secure more funding or to get your investors to put in more money because you have to plan for the next phase of your development, or because you need more cash flow, or whatever the reason might be, or because you need a new investment in equipment or whatever it is. So decide on your overarching objective. Then define your target audience. So if funding is your issue, is your objective, and you might want to decide who to talk to. So could it be existing investors or new investors? Yeah, and what is then the key message that you want to communicate? And then select the channel. Do you want to invite them for a yam cha? Do you want to have a formal gathering and have a little conference room? Do you want to do it on Zoom? Do you want to have a pitch deck? You want to have a prospectus, or do you want to have some handouts, or you're just going to talk about it and leave them a few things to look at, and so on. So here's looking at, hang on, okay. So here's looking at some examples, of the crisis communication plan. So on the left, you see target audience, and then the objective, key message, and channel. So I've just given you, just giving you a few examples here. So let's say that your target audience is your customers, and your main objective is you want to maintain your loyal customers. And your key message is you want to reassure your customers that service will not be disrupted, not like ice lango. So service will not be disrupted. And you want to make that your key message. And the channel of communication could be a newsletter if you have a newsletter, could be a phone call if you have only 10, 20 customers. Let's say you're in the service industry or in your B2B industry and you have some big customers, you want to reassure them, or you can identify exactly who your loyal customers are. Then by all means make a phone call, but get your message correct. So once you clarify your objective and you arrive at your key message, then you implement it through the right channel. Another target group or another target audience could be creditors. So let's say you want to talk to your banker or your investors or your shareholders, no? So your objective obviously is to give them confidence and get their support. And the key message you want to project there is perhaps a business recovery plan. So you want to show that your business has come down 20, 30%, but you have things in place, you have plans in place, you've taken action, and you're going to continue taking action to bring it back to where it was. Yeah. So if you have a solid business recovery plan, then they will support you. And this could be a face-to-face meeting, or it could be a Zoom meeting or a phone meeting, depending on your situation. Now, then the third audience could be your team, no? And this could be, for many of us, could be the most important target audience, our own people, no? How do we give them a sense of assurance, a sense of security, that they won't be losing their jobs, and also give them a sense of calm, because everybody is human. We are all in a state of worry and anxiety and so on. We don't want our kids in school to be affected, or perhaps our spouse is a frontline worker. So there are all these emotions going on in us. So, well, we want to give them a sense of security and make them feel comfortable so that they can work well and be productive. Yeah. So we want to talk about maybe having a team meeting or a town hall, or maybe we put things on the company circular. And I just give you an example. No? So in the US, Walmart, Walmart is the largest supermarket chain. So when the crisis hit, and then eventually they went into lockdown, but when the lockdown was lifted, of course, the staff are very anxious about going back to work because they are facing customers, they're facing hundreds of people every day. So the company Walmart came up with a very good message, and they crystallized it to just three words or three numbers, And that single message that they crystallized it down to was 6, 20, 100. So three numbers, 6, 20, 100. Very easy to remember, right? 6, 20, 100. So you might be thinking, what is this 6 to 20 and 100? So in the US, you know that haven't moved to the metric system. So they're still using feet and inches and pounds and ounces and all that. So the 6 stands for physical distancing, 6 feet apart. Keep 6 feet distance. So 6. The 20 is 20 seconds. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. And the 100 is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. We know our body temperature should be about 98.4. So anything higher than 99 to 100 is not good. So it's a signal that you should stay at home. So 6 is 6 feet apart. 20 is wash your hands for 20 seconds. And 100 is stay home if you're sick. Yeah. So isn't that a great little message? So I thought that would be a good example to share with you. The fourth target audience could be suppliers. And with your suppliers, you want to make sure that you have continued supply. I understand that, for example, in the glove industry, one of the constraints of making more gloves is not the capacity, but the ability to get the raw material, the nitrile, latex, and all that. So without sufficient material, raw material, they also cannot produce as much as they want. So you want to make sure that your suppliers give you continuous supply, especially for key ingredients, no? Or even if you're in a retail situation, let's say you're a boutique, you want to make sure your supplier continues to supply you with your clothes so that you get something to sell. So you might want to talk about your loyalty, your gratitude in your messaging. And again, if it's a key supplier, you probably know them quite well. You can phone them, you can Zoom them if they're overseas, and so on and so forth. So I hope this gives you some clear examples. No? So the template is really target audience, objective, key message, and channel. And talking about template, we have a crisis communication planning template. If you would like it, just send an email to success@peterlamcoach.com and we will send it to you. It's free. Yeah. So just to have a little tool to help you to plan your communication. Okay. So back to this slide. Why am I showing you this? So you have to drive it. You are the leader of your company. You are the boss. You are the, direction giver. So you have to drive it. And being a leader in a crisis requires a few essential competencies or a few essential qualities. So obviously communication is very important, no? And as I said, sometimes you need to communicate with outside third parties, whether it's the bankers, the creditors, your suppliers, or even your customers, sometimes even the media. And obviously, one of the most important groups you need to communicate with is your team, your staff, right? So communication skills very important. But to communicate well, you need emotional calm. You need emotional calm, especially in this uncertain, volatile period, so that you can make good decisions. Yeah. And to make good decisions, you need to be situationally aware. You need to know what's happening. You need to know that there's a grant for IR 4.0. You need to know that you can take advantage of digitalization. You need to know what your customers are doing or the changes in lifestyle of your customers. You need to know, for example, what your competitors are doing, the dynamics in the market. You need to know what's happening in the forex situation if you're importing raw materials, importing your products, and you got to be decisive. Now, I come across many business owners, they can't decide what to do. Should they go into take some more loans to hang on, or should they invest more in Facebook or in marketing, or should they revamp their packaging, or should they let go of a couple of their staff? So indecisiveness is your biggest enemy. You want to make decisions, but you want to make decisions based on calm, not on panic, not on being jittery or just reacting knee-jerk. So calmness and decisiveness very important. And together with that comes courage and clarity. So if you have very clear vision and mission for your business, for your company, what you really want to do, then you can be like, for example, Alibaba, Jack Ma and his company, even though he's retired, but I think he's still associated, are listing the Ant Financial Group. Yeah, what used to be Alipay has been expanded to Ant Financial Group, and is touted as going to be the biggest share flotation in the market, since a long, long time. And we're looking at raising 200 billion or something like that, 30 billion, I think, on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So if you have clarity of purpose and your vision is very, very far, then you realize that, hey, this is just one of those situations. It's a crisis, may last 1 year, may last 2 years, but it can't last forever and things will, be okay after that. So you need courage and you need clarity. Clarity comes from your purpose, your mission, and your vision. So once you have clarity, you can also communicate better. So those are what I call the crisis leadership competencies that you need to have, yeah, to be on top of this crisis. And you need to be also be aware whether you're a strategic thinker, a technical planner, or an operational doer. So if you find that you are strong in one area and not in another area, you want to get some help, either in terms of a mentor or someone you can talk to, a coach or a colleague or a partner or something. So those are some important tips I want to leave you with. And before we talk about, yeah, so always put health and safety first in all your communication, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a factory, whether you are in the import-export business, you want to make sure you communicate health and safety first. In times like this, you don't want any risk because not only you want to protect your fellow man or your community, you don't want any negative publicity to hit you because you didn't do any SOP. You don't want to be like those jokers in Rawang who had a discharge in their factory and then screw up the whole water system for Selangor. So you don't be things like that. You don't have that kind of negative publicity. Even if it wasn't your fault, no, you want to make sure you take preemptive action. Okay, so very quickly, my book. This is what Professor Paul Chan, the founder of Help University, has to say. And I just want to very quickly make a special offer to you guys who are Affin Bank customers. So the book is available in Popular, in Kinokuniya, and MPH bookshops. It's available online as well. And it's being sold for $59.90. But if you're an Affin Bank customers, we want to let you have it for just 39 ringgit, inclusive of handling and shipping. Yeah, so it's a very special deal. In this book, you will learn all the steps, not only to increase and double your profits, but more importantly, to build a solid business. So in times like this, in a crisis like this, you want to learn how to build a solid business that is sustainable and that will last a long, long time. Okay. All right. So we've come to the end of today. And just want to let you know the next session, we're going to talk about cash flow mastery during this crisis, how to plan your cash flow, how to control your cash flow, what are some tools you can use and practically use to make sure that you get a grip on your cash flow.